Okay, real quick. I think this is what's going on. So someone says, no, but God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Don't you see it? God went in there and he he changed brain cells around, or he messed with his soul, whatever you think. He messed with his immaterial soul brain. I don't know, the brain's pretty complicated as it is. Why not just go with God created that thing? But so he goes in there and he determines it. That means God determines every little detail about everything, right? No. It means God. Okay, so then somebody points out, well, I mean, Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Gotcha. So God just kind of, strengthened his resolve, and it was mostly Pharaoh's fault. So God didn't really determine him. He didn't take away his free will. I don't know about that. I'd say no. He determined him what he would do. He knew what he was going to do, and God pushed his buttons, and he did it. God determined that his heart to be even hardened. Then someone goes, well, but look at this. It says God predicted it. He said, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh, and you're going to tell him this, and he's going to harden his heart. So God knew. So that was before Pharaoh hardened his own heart. So there you go. Gotcha. It's really not that incredible. So is this the exception or the rule? I would argue it's somewhat of an exception. That's why it's part of the story, because it's what God's planned to do in history, and it's a particular event. That's God particularly acting on purpose in such a way to get a certain kind of outcome. And yes, God certainly knew, and yes, God determined to harden his heart so that his power would be seen when he overcame the king of that empire. So I think it's something like this. Look, I could have predicted that Pharaoh was going to harden his heart. Obviously, he's going to harden his heart. He's a king of a huge empire. He thinks he's half God. God tells Moses, hey, it'd be like this. If I said, hey, you, some guy out there listening. Yeah, I'm going to say I have a connection so I can get you into the White House. Or you have some connection, like you're like the girlfriend or boyfriend of one of Biden's nephews, half cousins or something. And so he will hear you. He'll come let you say hi or whatever. And I say, I'm the king of British Columbia, or let's say Cuba. Go to your second uncle, the President Biden, and tell him that the king of the Hill of Mud, or a foreign leader that's no significance in his mind, tell him I sent you into defund all liberal institutions and immediately remove all liberal policies for the United States of America, and tell him the king of this, foreign country sent you. What do you think I would do? How would he respond? God's the part that's hardening his heart is just like, obviously he's going to harden his heart. If someone requests some outrageous thing like give up all your all your slaves that are doing your bidding, and so God, but then he does some tricks or whatever, God does miracles before him and he resists, and then God finally sends plagues, and what happens? He finally has to do it, which displays that God is the sovereign. Not because he determines everything that people do or like comes to pass. No. Because he can overcome men's stubborn hearts to bring his salvation to those who are his people. Say it that way. God's in charge, even with your stupid free will. Nah, you can't stop God. Even if you're the king of Egypt, even if you command the armies of the world, ain't gonna happen. God sits on his throne and laughs. Why does he laugh? Because your futile efforts to oppose his sovereignty are just that, futile. God doesn't determine your inability to overcome him. He overcomes it in spite of it, easily. He doesn't have to determine people's futility of their pride to overcome it. It's an easy thing for him to do, no matter how greatly man schemes or condenses his power to come against the God of creation. has nothing to do with whether God philosophically determines all things that come to pass. It's just the narrative isn't saying that. It's saying God can't be thwarted and he is absolutely sovereign, and he might even do stuff you don't think he would do. And the text even says that that's the case. But what it doesn't suggest, it's a exception, not the rule. That's why it's a particular, mighty demonstration of God's power. It would be a demonstration of God's power if that means everything that happens is God. I mean, the outcomes are determined by God because he'll have his way. But clearly it's the exception to the way God is interacting. It doesn't say that's what's going on with every single act in the world. It's that his outcomes will be achieved. That's the idea. Otherwise we would have some Jewish sects in history that were more deterministic, but they're not. But the reason it's a value to have Calvinists is because they're keeping everybody else honest. You would probably be, we'd probably all be universalists by now without the Calvinist. The free gracers would have taken over. See ya.